Hi guys, it's Arsh Ellahi, and in today's video I've got something really special for you. So I was actually invited to do an interview for Your Property Network magazine, which is one of the UK's largest read property magazines by active property investors. Now when Ant approached me, and I've known Ant for over 10 years, I've been a regular in that magazine for over, best part of 10 years, and Ant interviewed me about all things property and all things sourcing. I thought it'd be a great addition for you guys on this channel to listen in, to get some of the intricate details as to what it takes to become a property sourcer. Now, if you like the thought of that, and also you want to get a subscription to Your Property Network magazine, go to yourpropertynetwork.co.uk. If you fill in your details, I think it costs 30 pence for the first edition, but then you can cancel any time, and it's a magazine full of great knowledge. Now, before we get on to that, let's just remind you, this channel is sponsored by the Property Investor app, which is the UK's first property investment platform, which showcases all kinds of deals all over the UK. Whether it's below market value deal, a rent-to-rent deal, a lease option deal, we've got them all there. Now, there are two ways to get involved. You can either go to the website, which is propertyinvestorapp.co.uk, or if you've got a smartphone, go to the App Store, type in Property Investor and download it from there. As always, don't forget to hit the like, subscribe button, and I really hope that you enjoyed this interview.
Hi, this is Ant from Your Property Network magazine, and I'm talking to a good friend of mine and a very good friend of YPN's today, Arsh Ellahi. So we're old mates, Arsh, aren't we? We've known each other for a decade.
Yeah, it's the best part of a decade, yeah.
It must be, yeah. And you've been writing in the pages of the magazine for almost that amount of time. So
can you believe it, Ant? I've done an article for pretty much, I think it's 9 years.
Yeah, that's amazing, isn't it?
Every month for 9 years.
With only a small bit of nagging to get it in for the print deadline.
Oh, mate, I'm brilliant at deadlines.
So today, for those of you who don't know Arsh, and it's not going to be very many of you, Arsh is like my go-to guy on anything property sourcing. He sits in the middle of hundreds of deals, and so when we were talking about doing an article on how to source professionally investment properties, his name was immediately top of the list to say we need to talk to him. So, Arsh, can you sort of tell people a little bit about what you do in a little bit about your property business and specifically about the sourcing side of things?
Okay, cool. Well, first of all, thank you, Ant. Thanks for inviting me on. So I've been involved in property now. Where are we? 2023. 23 years I've been involved in property. And in that time, I've built up a reputable portfolio. So on average, we've got, circa, and it's growing, around 1,200 tenants, which is interesting, shall we say, managing that kind of level of tenants and that level of business. And as well as that, I've got a meridian of different style of businesses. So one of the ones that I'm quite proud of is that I run a sourcing business. And I've also built a platform for that sourcing business called the Property Investor app, which, if I was to summarize it, it's the equivalent like Rightmove, but just for property deals. So that's what the Property Investor app's all about, really, and that's what I kind of try and help. I try and help people that are looking to sell their property and may not have the investors, and I also try and find investors that can't find deals by showing them some properties.
Yeah, so the Property Investor app, and I'm a huge fan of it myself, is essentially a portal, a window connecting people who are sourcing deals with those who are looking for deals, and solves a lot of problems for people who are out there. And it's that chicken and egg situation, really, isn't it? When you're sourcing properties, of which do I find first? Do I find the investor first, or do I find the deal first? So the Property Investor app is there to kind of fix that problem. But it's not, I would imagine it's not dead passive for you, because someone has to sit there saying, well, okay, is this a deal, or what quantifies a deal? So if we kind of roll the clock back to sort of pre-app, before the app was launched, you were teaching people how to source, and you were connecting buyers with those people who are actually outsourcing deals. So you've taught hundreds of people on how to source properties. For those people who are starting out, where is the best place to start? You know, how were you teaching your students to find deals? Is it one way, or have you got a myriad of different ways of actually finding that property deal?
I love this question, Ant. I genuinely love this question, because if I ask you, I'm going to counter your question with a question. So what quantifies a deal? Is it something that is either below market value? Is it something that is generating a good cash flow? Is it something that's a multi-let? Is it something that's a single let? Is it something that's in need of modernisation? Is it something where you can refinance and get all your money back out on? Is it something that produces a good return on investment? Which one of those is deemed as a good deal, or is any of them deemed as a good deal? So from your point of view, Ant, which one of those would you choose?
So I'd be really, really niche, yeah. So for me, I'd be looking at very, very specifically something where I can add value and either sell on for a profit or refinance, take out, I'm not going to say all of my money because I think that's very difficult to do, but a good chunk of money. But I think the point you're illustrating is that, you know, that's just me. And, you know, there's, you could line up 100 different investors and we'd all have different criteria and we'd all be looking at different areas.
And that is exactly the point. So the one thing I always say to the people that come to me is that don't look at this. And I've got to tell you a little story here, Ant. Unfortunately, I've been to a few speed awareness courses.
Okay.
On speed awareness course, the one thing that they taught me that really stood out is that you've got two types of visions. You've got funnel vision and you've got tunnel vision. Now, this is what stuck out for me. Not to mention that we should be saving lives and slowing down and all that kind of stuff and all the great stuff. But when they talked about funnel vision and tunnel vision, is that when you're funnel vision, you're looking at all different properties in all different locations with all different cash flow models. With funnel vision was what you described, with tunnel vision was what you described, and niching down on one type of property. Now, when you're sourcing, and let me just take this back now, what I try and look at it is the global picture. And let's just imagine an estate agency chain like Connells or Reed's Rains, who are national brands. When you walk past their window and they've got all these properties on the outside, do they only sell 2-bedroom bungalows?
No, they do anything, don't they?
£250,000. No, they don't. What are they offering us? They're offering us 1-bedroom flats. They're offering us 2-bedroom flats. They're offering us 3-bedroom flats. They're offering us terrace properties. They're offering us semi-detached. They're offering us detached. They're offering us bungalows. They're offering us land. Now, why are they doing that? They're doing that because they realize that everyone is looking for something different. Now, ultimately, with sourcing, it's no different, because Ant will have a different investing parameter to someone else. So I may have an investing parameter, Ant has a different investing parameter, and let's just say Peter has a different investing parameter. Now, if we all just go out looking for a 2-bedroom terrace property, we may only be serving a very small minority of the investors' market, and we're missing out all of these. So what I teach people is don't just look for one deal. Understand all the different cash flow models, and every time you look at a property, you should be able to apply a strategy to that property, which will then meet different criteria. So, okay, is this a below market value deal? Perhaps not. If it's not a below market value deal, can it then become a multi-let? And will that then meet the multi-let cash flow model? Or could it be in the location a service accommodation deal? Or could it be where else can we add value? Can we do a refurb? Can we add an extension onto this? Can we go back? Can we go out? Can we add value elsewhere? So we're looking at different models, and if we can then demonstrate a sustainable, and sustainable is a key word here, cash flow model to the property, and we can show an investor that this is what it is now, with a bit of work and determination, we can get it generating this, and the end value may be this. That is how investors buy. They buy because some of them, and I'm not saying all of them, but some of them lack vision. Some of them need to be shown the transition of where it's going to be. And again, they don't just take my word for it. We back this up with evidence. We back this up with statistics. We back this up with, Rick's surveys reports, etc.
I was going to ask about that because you and I have probably both been on a number of forums and Facebook groups where deals get put online, and it would be fair to say that some of them are good deals for nobody. That there's no opportunity to add value. The rents aren't what they're purported to being, and maybe it's just being sold at Rightmove price plus $5,000 because someone's trying to turn a profit on it. But
we'll come to that, because believe it or not, I don't actually think there's anything wrong with that.
Okay.
I genuinely don't think there's anything wrong with someone sourcing some stock that is listed on the market.
But do you think there's any? But that's a slightly different thing to people painting a picture of a deal that is not really true. Let's say the market rent's 900. Well, the market rent's 600. There's deals can be misrepresented to be painted in a better light.
So they've got to be able to quantify the figures. They've got to be able to back it up, because if the deal's not a deal and the figures don't stack, then naturally it's always going to fall over. And whether it falls over by not selling, or whether it falls over later on down the line when the valuation comes, because if you're telling someone that the house is worth 100,000, but it's only worth 90, when they go up to get a mortgage and the surveyor turns up and says, "Sorry guys, this is only worth 90," and it just stacks. It will fall over somewhere, and all you've done is become a busy fool.
So, and it's actually an interesting one, because there's qualifying the deal, and then there's also the other side of things of qualifying the buyer. And I don't know, I'm sure you don't get this anymore, but I'm sure at times before in the past you've seen the kind of the time wasters and the tire kickers and the people who are definitely going to buy the property, and then they're not.
I'll be honest. This is probably where a lot of your listeners and readers probably hate me right now, because I say and again, if you go onto forums, some people will say this is the wrong way to do it. But I say to guys, you're interested, show me your money. Show me your money, put your money where your mouth is, put your sourcing fee on the table. Let's leave it sat with solicitors, or let's leave it sat with, an escrow account. And then should you change your mind with no fault of their own of the property, that fee is then used as our fee. It's not transferred onto another deal.
So in the instance that, we agree this and I pay the fee and it's held somewhere, and then through the conveyancing process, which takes an eon, I think, these days, something crops up. Something comes up which, none of us could have envisaged, or a survey's done and there's found to be like a, massive problem with the property which nobody had envisaged, big structural problem. What happens in that instance? Because that's not my fault as the buyer.
If there's an issue with the property, and we're very clear that if there's an issue with the property which is preventing you from buying the property, then yes, that fee is fully refunded back the same day.
Yeah. Okay. And the same with this, were it to be sort of significantly downvalued or something like that. Yeah.
But if there's, but then ultimately, we have to look at all scenarios. When it comes to down valuations, we have to have, I had one guy that had a down valuation where he was buying a 4-bedroom HMO, but then when we looked at his mortgage valuation report, he told the mortgage broker and the surveyor that he was buying a 3-bedroom terraced house.
Yeah. Okay. Well, that's definitely not your fault. So
yeah, exactly. So, again, we don't, when in sourcing, I have seen every single eventuality that you can think of.
So how do let's say I'm looking to buy from a sourcer, and it's not you in this instance, Arsh, it's somebody else, and they want a payment up front for the fee, and I agree it's a smart way to have that money sat somewhere. How do I know that they're not just going to take that and then the deal didn't exist, or they haven't secured it, or how can I know that?
If you're worried about it, well, if you're not sure about the sourcer or their credentials, first of all, it never goes to them. It never goes to them. It has to sit in a third party. So there are lots of escrow accounts out there. Or alternatively, if to show your willingness to proceed, you can lodge the funds with your solicitor and base on an undertaking to the sourcer.
Yeah. Okay. So the days of, let's say, oh, here you go, I'm just paying you directly my £5,000 sourcing fee and hoping for the best. That's we need to avoid that.
Anyone that does that, and this is me coming from me with background 23 years, the amount of stories that I hear every day. Oh, I'm not so sure I should be paying a sourcing fee up front because I've done this previously and I've not got my money back. Yeah. I've heard so many hundreds of stories like that. And I said, well, what search have you done on this sourcer? What search have you done on this company? Oh, no, it was a great deal. They told me that they had other buyers that wanted it and it was first come, first serve. It's just standard sales tactics.
So what search can I be doing on a sourcer or a company? What could I be looking at to make sure that they're not, that they are bit of due diligence for me as the buyer to make sure that I'm not going to get ripped off?
First of all, you need to check whether they are a registered sourcer. When I say registered sourcer, have they got all the anti-money laundering regulations checks? Are they registered with the property redress scheme? Are they registered with the ICO? Now, it's great having all these registrations, but the reality, and I'm going to put this out there bluntly, is that if you've paid someone a fee, the property redress scheme can reach out to them, but ultimately, if they shut that business down as well, that kind of leaves, who do they chase?
It's a bit toothless, isn't it? It's a bit
toothless. Just a shell company, if this is just a skeleton company, who are you going to chase? That's why I always say, try and keep the funds within, even though what you're doing is you're showing your willingness. Yeah. Your willingness, not your willingness. You're showing your willingness to part with your funds, but also leave it in a place where you've still got a level of control. And by leaving it with your solicitor, so not with their solicitor, but to your solicitor, and provide an undertaking, that is as good as anything to show your willingness to proceed. Yeah.
Okay. I mean, that's amazing advice, isn't it? Because, we want to protect both parties here. We want to protect ourselves as the sourcer from the time wasters. And we've seen them, haven't we? The people who said, yeah, I've got the money, I'm going to buy 10 of these. And the reality is they haven't, or they're not. But we also need to protect ourselves as the buyer as well. So I wanted to ask as well, how involved are you in the deals as they progress? Because I know you look at, am I right in saying you look at all the deals as they come across your table and onto the platform?
Yes. When we first started out, I literally sat there with pen and paper and went through every single detail. Does this stack? Does this not? Now, as the property investor app has evolved, we've actually built in with our good friend now of AI. Yeah. We've actually built in lots of calculations and also tools which go off and cross-check figures. So to check, if this guy's saying it's worth £100,000, how realistic is that 100,000? Because if nothing else is on that street has sold for anything past, let's say 88, again, there's no benefit in us putting out stock, which is perceived to be, which is expensive, because ultimately people will do their research.
You and the sourcer, you only get paid really when the deal completes, yeah?
Yeah, correct. So, we need to make sure that this deal completes. So we have, the way that I see it is that we need to make sure that it's appraised properly. We need to make sure that we can get through valuation correct, because if it falls over at valuation, again, we've not earned any money. And then the next thing is that we need to get it to the point of exchange as quickly as possible. Again, because, and the same thing with...
I was really sorry to talk over you there, but I was really interested in that, getting it to the point of exchange as quickly as possible, because you and I both know, okay, that if you just leave with a solicitor, they won't do anything. Most of them, sorry if you're listening to this and your solicitor isn't like this, but most of them won't do anything until it looks like the deal's going to fall over. So how do you sit in the middle? Are you involved in the conveyancing process and nudging it along?
Yeah. So, we don't, we always say to our investors, or the sellers and the investors, that we have got a panel of solicitors who are tried and tested, who actually speak to each other, not just send each other letters. So if they want something to happen quite quickly, we have got that. We don't force anything on them, but we say that in order for this to happen, we know that we can get it moved along quickly. If the seller wants to use their own solicitor, then what we do is that we've got a member of the team who pretty much every Friday does a sales progression check on all transactions. And in that sales progression, what we want to know is what action has happened on that file that week. Is there outstanding inquiries? When were the inquiries sent? What information are you outstanding? And then off the back of that, they then can go back to the other party and say, we understand that this was sent to you. Has this been actioned? If not, why not?
Okay, so you've got a member of the team there actually working as a sort of, conveyancing assistant, really, just trying to move the thing along.
Yeah, so we are trying to see if our friends at AI will automate that. But again, at the moment, as it stands, we've got a physical member of the team that does that. Because again, it's in our best interest to get this to exchange. And if it's just sat on a solicitor's desk thinking, oh, I'll look at this next week, that's not doing anything for us.
So before the app was in place, so before you had a shop for deals, I know you acted sort of very much as a middleman for people, didn't you? You had an investor list yourself. Your students would come to you, they'd have found a deal, and you'd be able to put that out to contacts. For people who were kind of doing it without you in place, what were they doing? Were they trying to find deals and then scrabbling about for a relevant investor, or were they building up a sort of network of investors? Because we said earlier on, that chicken and egg thing, which do you do first? Is there a right answer?
There's not. I mean, it's like a double-edged sword. So just imagine there's my sword, double-edged sword. So again, going back to your point, do you go off and find the deal first and then look to find the investor after? Or do you find the investor first and then try and find the deal after? Now, and I always go back to what has the market done? Now, do Connells, do they go out and find the buyer first, or do they find the deal first and then present it out onto a platform and try and find the buyer? And that's exactly what they do. So Mr. Smith is selling their house. Mr. Smith comes to Connells. Connells appraises it and then puts it on Rightmove. The buyer then is attracted through Rightmove. And that's exactly what we do. So we're not trying to reinvent the cycle here. But more importantly, if you spend all this time trying to find investors, but you've got nothing to present to them,
they've gone by the time you've got a deal. They've bought something else or moved on, I guess.
Exactly. So it's always you can do both tasks simultaneously, but it's always, for me, I think it's best to find the deal. And then there's lots of different ways that, with social media, how many times have you seen deals that have been posted up on Facebook or Instagram or TikTok, etc. I haven't got around to doing the TikTok dance outside any of these houses yet.
It's only a matter of time, surely.
You've seen my dancing.
I have witnessed that, and no, the rest of the world does not need to be subjected to it. As an enthusiastic but no talented dancer myself, I can confidently say that.
So Jenny, in answer to your question, I personally believe it's best to find the deal first before you find the investor. Okay. But ultimately, once you've found the deal, you are pretty much on like an egg timer style situation, because how long you have that deal for before the investor starts or before that seller starts to look elsewhere. And the same scenario when they give it to Connells, generally they've signed up for 8 weeks, 12 weeks.
Yeah, 8 weeks or whatever exclusivity, and then if nothing happens in that time, they're shopping around. So okay, so how do you go about controlling the deal? So is there one way to do that, or is it different if it's direct to vendor or via an agent?
It varies. It generally varies depending on vendor, depending on the different kind of deals. So remember, there's all kinds of deals. You've got your standard buy properties that you're buying. Then you've got rent to rent, then you've got lease options, and you've got service accommodation deals. So every deal is different. But generally, you would like to try and get a level of exclusivity to the deal. So whether you can lock that deal out. Now, if the property is with an estate agent, the chances of you getting any level of exclusivity is slim to none.
Yeah.
Because let's face it, and if I'm going to be completely realistic about this, now just imagine that Peter, I don't know where Peter's come from, but he's been mentioned quite a lot in this session. Peter, who has just come off a training course, he now calls Connells really enthusiastically. Hi, my name's Peter. I've seen this property. I think I might have a buyer for this property. Are you happy for me to present this to our investors? Oh, by the way, we need a level of exclusivity. Can you take it off Rightmove, Zoopla, on the market for me?
It's not going to happen, is it? So
no. Peter, tell me actually, how long have you been involved in property? Oh, I started last week. And because let's face it, Rightmove, Zoopla, on the market are three very powerful worldwide tools. Why are they going to take it off those platforms just so that Peter, with no experience, or who is then going to possibly go and bandit around on Facebook, what better chances do they have than these three platforms, which generate them tens of thousands of leads every year?
So what would Peter do differently?
Peter needs to, well, I suppose the difference between what Peter does and what Connells does is the way that they package the deal. Because obviously Connells, a 3-bedroom house is just a 3-bedroom house. Where does Connells look at it from a cash flow point of view? Where does Connells look at it from a point of view of adding value? This is where Peter comes in. He adds value into the deal. He proposes what it is now, what it can be done. And this is what good sources should be doing. Because, you know, a 3-bed house is a 3-bed house, but also a 3-bed house has scope for improvement, either from a cash flow point of view or from a renovation point of view or from a floor layout point of view. Because again, investors are lazy. They want to be able to, they want it spoon-fed to them. And I think this is one thing that the Property Investor app does really well, that we spoon-feed so much data into the investor so they can see what is it now, what it can become, what's the cash flow model now, what is the projected cash flow model, and then also what is the potential end value based on the projections. And again, if an investor wants us not to do all the refurb, all the letting, because we don't have the infrastructure for that, but we have surveyors in place that can help with the valuations on the back end to make sure that not only they're buying it at the right price from the start, but also allowing them to kind of get a projection of what the end value is so that they can try and refinance and come out with a large majority of their money, if not all their money. As you said.
So in this instance, yeah, of Peter going into Connells, he's got a deal, they're not advertising it perhaps in the right way to investors, yeah, and he can present it so it looks better. So it's a better, it's better presented to an investor. How does he sort of knit the two things together? So he's gone on the app, it's presented really well. You know, how does he then take that to Connells and say, "I've got a buyer for you"? How would you do that, or how would he do that?
Okay, so and do you reckon Connells really care where the buyer comes from?
No, definitely not.
So, you know, if I and you got to remember there's two different lots of commissions involved here. So Connells make their money from the seller. The sourcer makes their money from the buyer. So as long as the sourcer is not trying to be too clever and try and generate commissions from both sides, there's no conflict of interest.
Yeah.
So Connells, as far as the owner of the property is concerned, it's Connells that have sold the property.
Yeah.
Now, from Connells' point of view, they don't want Peter to come along and try and be clever and try and control the transaction.
So he's just going to say, "Here's Ant.
He's
going to buy this."
Correct.
So, okay.
So, and then, but hopefully, before they introduce Ant, Peter would have asked Ant to lodge their funds.
Yeah. Yeah. Do any due diligence on me. Ant.
Correct.
So, yeah.
Correct.
Okay.
So therefore, Peter cannot be cut out the equation.
So in this instance, Peter's not. He has no exclusivity to the deal. He's just trying to move quickly. Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
If you're working with an estate agent and
With an
it's
agent.
a national chain,
Yeah.
chances of you getting exclusivity is slim. But obviously, from that point of view, you know, Pete Ant has seen this deal. Ant really likes this deal. He's not seen this deal previously, so and he's added value to the deal. And Ant obviously has taken an interest in this property. So hopefully, Ant has seen enough interest in this property to see that Peter's actually added enough value to this property.
Yeah. Okay. All right. That makes sense. Now, it's a different kettle of fish, I assume, if we're direct to vendor on this. So if we're dealing direct with the owner of a property, we can potentially negotiate something a little bit more robust in terms of protecting.
Yeah, of course.
ourselves.
I mean, with vendors, because obviously, where there's a estate agent involved, they've already signed an exclusivity agreement or a management agreement or a sole agency agreement with the vendor. That sole agency agreement would not allow Peter to circumvent anything in that transaction. Now, when you're direct to vendor, you really want something like a sole agency agreement with the vendor or a lockout agreement or an exclusivity agreement, which basically says that, you know, during this period, you're not going to try and sell it elsewhere, etc. And then you've got that ability to go off and try and find that buyer.
So let's say me, Ant, you know, I'm out there, and this is actually the case right now, looking at deals, and I'm like, you know what? 6 out of 7 of those are not quite right for me because I'm so niche, aren't I, in what I'm looking for. But maybe they're okay for someone else, and I'm direct to vendor, or I've got a close relationship on some of them. How do I work with you, Arsh, to say, I don't have an exclusivity agreement. I don't have an agency agreement that I can get anyone to sign. How can I work with you? So if I bring this deal saying, Arsh, I got this deal, it's not exactly mine, but I think it's a good deal for someone else. How do we work together?
So this is where lots of people approach us pretty much daily. And, you know, what we say to them is they send us across the information.
Yeah.
If they want us to sign an NDA, got no issue with that. And then off the back of that, we then appraise it. And then, like you rightly said, lots of people come across opportunities and it may not be right for them, but not to say that, you know, you spent time and effort in generating this. Is in essence, it's still a lead. And what you want to do is be able to be in a position where you monetize every lead, because it might not be right for you. The cash flow might just be slightly short for you, or you know, you might not be able to pull as much money out as you wanted, but it will suit different people's purses. And I'm trying to bring this back so everyone understands where I come from this. And people will either think that I'm absolutely batty or they'll think that I'm absolute genius. So how many different types of supermarkets are there, Ant?
Oh, what a question. Half a dozen?
Shall we just say, you know, when you go into, I don't know, in your lovely work part of the world, do you have an Asda?
I live, there are Asdas around, you know, within like 30 minutes drive. I think the nearest building to where I live is probably 2 miles away. So I've got more cows than supermarkets.
So let's just imagine that you do have an Asda. But when you walk into an Asda, how many different ranges do they have? So you've got the smart price, which is the budget. Yeah. And then you've got your Heinz, which is your main street high brand. And then they've even got the exclusive range, whatever that may be. Yeah. So what we tend to do is that we try and find different types of properties to meet all the different types of investors' pockets. So for argument's sake, now, and you know, you've been around in the property game for a while. I'm assuming you're past the stage of buying 2-bedroom terrace houses for 50 grand.
Yeah, but those are out there. Those are and still in demand.
Yes, but now what's your criteria right now?
Freehold blocks of flats.
Freehold blocks of flats. So as a sourcer, we need to be able to identify the fact that different properties have different prices. and different cash flow levels. And we need to be able to say, well, yes, we need to source these because that will service those people. We need to source these because that will service those people. And again, going back to my scenario of Connells and their shop window, they've got different properties. So they've got detached for the larger families. They've got mid-terrace, they've got terrace properties for those that are starting out in the property and are small. And then they've got the semi-detached for those that are upgrading from the terrace properties into semi-detached, or those downgrading from the detached into semi-detached. Does that make sense, Hans?
That makes sense, yeah. So for me, I viewed 7 properties a couple of days ago, yeah. One of which is maybe okay for me, and then 6 of them, it's not that they're not deals, they're just not my deals. So with those, I'm, you know, at the moment, right now, where I am, I do nothing with those. And that seems crazy. And that's probably most people, isn't it? That, you know, they say, well, it's not for me, so I move on. But also we'll leave money on the table there, I guess.
Yeah, absolutely. So if you've got 6 deals there, and let's just say the average deal sells at around, let's say, you know, £3,000 plus VAT, which is our average deal.
Yep.
So based on that, you're leaving £18,000 plus VAT on table.
Yeah, from one day. So
yeah.
Okay. So people like me and other people out there, you know, what's the best protocol for them? Is it to get in contact with you and say, I've got what I think is a deal, and get it on the app, or what's the next step?
Yeah, so you've got to remember that on the Property Investor app, we've got over 50,000 people who have downloaded the app, who have registered with the app as property investors. And that means that we've got 50,000 people with 50,000 different types of appetite. So if you've got a deal, or if you've got a property that you've looked at and you thought maybe it's not for me, or you may be a sourcer and you've not sold it on. So the way that we look at it, you know, if you're a buyer and you're looking for something and it's not met your criteria, you can upload it onto the app and we can sell it to the investors. If you're a sourcer and you've sourced the deal and, you know, your first prime objective is to sell that property onto an investor, and you may not have been able to get someone to buy it onto it. Again, we've got a database of people that can buy that. I mean, obviously there's no catches, but the one thing that we do say is that anything that we work with, we work on a 50-50 split fee basis, and we're very clear on that. So, you know, if we charge 3,000 plus VAT for that deal, we will work on a 50-50 split fee.
And who determines the fee? Is it me, or is it you, or do we have a conversation?
We have a conversation, because you may think it's worth 10 grand plus VAT.
Yeah.
I may think it's worth 3 grand plus VAT. And because the way that I look at it from a point of view of cash flow. I look at it from a point of view capital required. And, you know, obviously the more you load it with capital, the more it's required, and therefore the less attractive the deal becomes.
Okay. So, and obviously 50 grand flat, probably not going to be a 10 grand fee. So
exactly. But you'll be surprised. You'll be surprised.
Yeah.
Someone comes to me with a 50 grand flat, and they want a 5 grand fee. I say, well, you're charging 10%.
Yeah, yeah. But then if it could be a 150 grand flat, obviously that's an extreme.
Absolutely. If we can show the value in it, then absolutely. So things like lease options, generally, my rule of thumb is that we charge £1,000 for every year of the lease that we've managed to negotiate. So if it's a 7-year rent-to-rent deal or 7-year lease option, we can charge 7 grand plus VAT.
Yeah.
If it's a, you know, if it's a 3-year deal, it's 3 grand plus VAT.
So what's as someone who sits in the middle of loads of deals, what are your biggest frustrations with sources or buyers or the general conveyancing process? What are the bugbears for you that we should watch out for?
Okay, so bugbears. So in the sourcing industry, first thing is that what we're very clear on is that we need to make sure that if a sourcer brings us a deal, that they're able to deliver on that deal. So we put the property up on the platform. If someone turns around to us and says, yes, Arsh, we want it, you need to be able to, in essence, deliver that property.
Yeah. Because
let's face it, when that property is on the app, they don't know about Peter that's bringing in the deal. They know about
it's Arsh, it's you, isn't it? Really? Yeah.
If we can't deliver that property, ultimately it's the Property Investor app that's being tarnished.
Yeah.
And we've had a couple of scenarios like that where, you know, they bought us a property on the Friday. We've got someone for it on the Friday. Oh, on the Monday, it's miraculously not available.
Yeah.
And so, you know, that really, so we need to see that that property is deliverable. So that's the biggest thing for us, because otherwise we just wasted a load of time.
Yeah.
We wasted a load of time appraising it, getting it up on there. And although it's great having hundreds of properties on the app, but if they're not available, what have we got? We've got shop front of nothing.
And what percentage of deals that get listed on the app sort of sell via it? Do you have any stats on that, or?
We have got stats on an average. I'm not saying that we sell everything, but we sell anywhere between 70 to 80%.
Okay. Yeah.
So
yeah, we've got hit rate. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a good hit rate. But ultimately, you know, it all depends on the property, the transaction, and then again, no, it's that I had one person came to me, and his name was actually Peter, and he came to me and he bought me a deal off Facebook. He sent it me on Thursday. We had it listed on Friday. He called us about 20 times on that Friday asking us if we sold it.
Yeah.
So, you know, things don't happen as quickly as that. And, you know, if it was like that, I can assure you we'd have every estate agent knocking on our door saying, sell everything. So, you know, we do our best to put it out there. We do our best to put it in the best possible way. And then, you know, it's in our interest to sell it, because at the moment, as it stands, we don't make any money until we have sold it.
I wanted to ask, you talked about the sort of compliance side of things a little earlier on. So let's say I come along and I'm looking at properties. I'm not a sourcer. That's not me. But I got a deal because it's not right for me. Do I need to go through the compliance side of things, or because I'm sort of, you know, selling via you, does that kind of take care of that element for me?
It's a real grey area. And I know there's people like Tina Walsh out there, Tina and Tony Walsh, that banding the fact that everyone needs to be compliant, and I completely get that. And if anything, I condone the fact that everyone needs to be compliant, just purely because it'd be good for the industry. Otherwise, let's face it, Peter, Tom, Paul, and John can all literally overnight then become sources. And again, if Peter, Paul, Tom, and John all start taking money off people, and they've then disappeared into the wind, they can very easily make a lot of money very quickly, and have no form of recall. So by becoming compliant, you are on a register, and then you have some form of recall. So, you know, like I said, the property redress scheme can try and then track you down to try and get your funds back, etc.
I mean, the challenge is that not all of us are, you know, are sources, are we? I wouldn't class myself as a sourcer ever, but I may have a deal that just so happens, you know what, it's not right for me, but, you know, I know someone who can sell this for me.
Yeah, I mean, it depends. When I've spoken to HMRC, and again, it depends on who you speak to. Basically, what they've said to me is that because I am compliant, and all the communication for the buyers and all the communication for the sales progression goes through the Property Investor app, technically speaking, everyone that lists on the Property Investor app is using our compliance. Now, but if you speak to other people like Tina, they're still saying that all these people have gone off and negotiated the deal with. If you've negotiated the deal with the vendor, you have to be compliant. There is no way around that. But if it is through an estate agent, you could argue the fact that the estate agent is compliant. You could argue the fact that the Property Investor app is compliant, and the Property Investor app is acting on behalf of the buyer, and the estate agent is acting on behalf of the seller. So in theory, Peter doesn't exist. So it really is. There's no right.
It's early days on this as well, isn't it? Really, this is very early days on the sort of compliance side of things, I guess. So we're, you know, we don't quite know. But there's, you know, as far as you're concerned, you know, me and I've gone out shopping for investments. There's stuff that isn't quite right for me. I'm okay to feed that through the app, through the portal there. Yeah.
Yeah. Absolutely. And then what we would do is then we'd say that as long as we've got some details of, where the deals come from, etc. And again, if it is through an agent, again, they'll be using their compliance for the seller. We'll be using our compliance for the buyer.
Yeah. Okay. All right. It's a really good advice there. So, if you could fix one thing about the whole process, I know for me what it would be. I hate the fact the conveyancing process just takes so long, and anything can happen in the interim.
Believe it or not, I'm a strong believer that the conveyancing process is going to get better. With AI and everything that's going on.
The optimist. So,
no, yeah. But because let's face it, I sat with a company a couple of weeks back, and one thing that we're trying to do also is that there are platforms out there where both. So in an ideal world, it'd be great if there was a platform, and this is actually being built, by the way, one platform out there where the buyer and their solicitor feeds the information into this platform. The seller and their solicitor feeds the information into this platform. Now, off the back of that, everyone has to report onto this platform so we can see where the hold-up is being held.
Yeah. Because it's a frustrating process, isn't it? Property seems so old-fashioned, really, in its speed of transaction.
Yeah, I mean, and it's it is quite easy because let's face it, searches nowadays, there are agencies out there that can turn searches around in 3 to 5 days. So what else are we waiting on? We're waiting on the mortgage offer. So the one thing that again is equally as frustrating is funding, because the same thing can happen with regards to the broker has the ability to blame the buyer as well as the lender.
Yeah. So
if we could do the same with that, so we can see where the holdup is. So the broker turns around and says, well, I haven't got the right ID. And then the buyer says, well, I sent it ages ago, so we don't know who's lying. And then equally, we don't know whether the broker has then sent that onto the lender. So there's so much that could be fixed. What we're trying to do at the Property Investor app, I don't mind sharing this, is that we're quite well down into negotiation where we're liaising, hopefully, with one bank, one lender, so that anyone that buys stock through the Property Investor app, they will be able to get funding through that lender.
Yeah.
So in an ideal world, what I want to happen is become a one-stop shop. Someone likes the property, they click yes. They are on the app at the moment. We've got a little button that says funding. They click that funding button. Within the space of a few minutes, we manage to get them a decision in principle.
Yeah.
Off the back of that, then they go off and go and buy the property or see if they like the property, etc. If they like the property, then great. Next thing that they do, that decision in principle then starts to move forward in terms of evaluation. And then off the back of that, we then instruct 2 solicitors which are on our panel who are all feeding all the information back into us, so that we should speed the whole process up to circa 30 days.
I wanted to ask you as well, and I know I'm leaping around a little bit, but I came onto this with a big list of questions and we're sort of covering them as we go through. But I wanted to ask about viewing properties that you're looking to buy, because people buy them unseen sometimes, never walked through the door, never even been in the town that they're buying.
I don't condone it. I don't condone it. So, and the reason why I don't condone it is because I'm a person that likes to sleep at night. And my question to you, Ant, is that would you ever buy a car without driving it?
Well, I suppose I probably have bought a new car without driving it.
Yeah,
but
and if it's
I'm definitely not buying someone else's problems. So
yeah, so if you were to go onto Facebook and you saw let's say a Kia Sportage that's got 100,000 miles on the clock, would you buy that without test driving it?
You'd never buy it, would you? And you'd never buy it without even seeing if it's real, or walking or opening the door and sitting in it. It just seems it seems crazy that people will buy stock, without walking through the door in a city they know nothing about. They go culturally, they don't even know if it feels safe to walk down that street.
And likewise, and that's what I say. So people that turn around to us, and we've got, because we're on a worldwide application, we've got people from Australia, I've got this guy from Australia buying a house in Grimsby. And there must not be any houses in Australia, none for sale in Australia whatsoever. So
I mean, if you lived in Oz, that's where you'd want to be, isn't it? Grimsby,
yeah,
sure.
I know, but he's decided that Grimsby.
I'm being facetious, obviously. But...
No, and then we've got a guy that's currently in Qatar. He's buying a place in Blackpool.
Yeah.
And these are all people that found us via the app, with the worldwide app.
And obviously that's a different situation. It's a slightly different situation, but you would hope there would be. Can you fix that problem for people, you know, in terms of a sort of video walkthrough or whatever? Or
so there are services out there like Viewber. So you've come across Viewber, and then they charge a small fee. So Viewber is like Uber, but for house viewings, where you view. And then off the back of that, they arrange viewings so that they walk around, they take hundreds of pictures, they send it on to the investor, and then only then the investor turns around and says either yes, they like it, or no, they don't. We never accept anyone that turns around and says, "Arsh, we don't want to see it. We want to just proceed," because that leaves us open to so many challenges later on down the line.
And you know, I guess that from there you're saying, well, there's an 80% chance this one's going to fall over because someone's not walked through the door or not had any kind of information.
And again, you got to remember, from point of view is we don't also, you know, at that point we don't even know. We've got to kind of quantify that investor in greater detail, because they're buying something with no viewing or anything, etc. So the guy in Qatar, he really struggled to find a solicitor to act on his behalf because he's based in Qatar, because on a high risk country.
Yeah.
So no one wanted to touch him. So it's really strange. So
how do you kind of conduct that due diligence on a buyer? So are you looking at, as well as, look, they've got the fee, so they're committed. Yeah. Are you also saying, right, now let's qualify them to say, you know, have they got a decision in principle? Are they demonstrating that they've got the funds? Are you at what stage are you kind of starting to look, saying, well, we think this is definitely going to proceed?
So first things first, we get them to obviously send us the fee so that we can kind of say that the deal is proceeding. Then between there and viewing the property, we want to ask them to start. We don't go off and ask them to get a decision in principle straight away, because in essence that could create a mark on their credit rating. And if they decide not to proceed after the viewing, they've just got they've got mark on their credit rating. For what purpose? So what we tend to do is that between reserving it and going to view it, they'll then send us like their proof of funds, etc. And then off the back of that, after the viewing, if they turn around and say, yes, we're good to go, that's when we'll go off and get the decision in principle. And it's the same process with the estate agency model. No, you know, there's quite a few agents now are asking for a decision in principle before the viewing, which I find strange. I genuinely find strange.
Yeah, it's an interesting one, isn't it? Because I guess they're just trying to make sure that only people who can definitely proceed are gonna buy this thing. Which I guess in a very hot property market, you can kind of understand. I'm not quite sure where we are now in the property market. Everyone's interested to hear your thoughts on that. Has the increase in interest rates, is that started to? Are you seeing an effect on the level of investors coming through, or?
Yeah, we're definitely seeing a downturn, shall we say, in number of inquiries, because naturally we're having to now, in our cash flow figures, show a higher level of interest rate. So
factor that in,
we're factoring now. We're working on interest rates of circa 7%.
Yeah.
And that's if we're being kind. And so 7%, so it makes a lot of the cash flow a lot less, which makes the deals, which makes the return on investment a lot less, which makes the deals a lot less attractive.
Yeah, although the weird thing is it also makes the deals have to be better, don't they? Because of that. So, and I was going to ask, what else was I going to ask as well as part of that was, are you yet seeing more deals come onto the market from kind of I don't like to use this term, but the sort of distressed landlord, perhaps somebody who's been in it a longer time, had the benefit of the property, now interest rates are starting to bite. you seeing more of those deals coming on yet? Or
We've seen a big influx of I don't call them distress. I call them just like retired landlords.
Yeah.
Retired landlords who pretty much this is perhaps just a push too far.
Yeah. I mean, so I said to you, didn't I? You said 7 properties on one day last week. Every single one of them was investor owned, and actually some of them were no longer investor owned. They'd been repossessed at some point. But it is real, isn't it? Those deals are coming on, and I don't know about you, but I was looking at properties that someone else has already had the benefit of the growth of them over years. So they've still got a lot of equity in there, but maybe they don't have the funds or the inclination to kind of do the work that needs to be undertaken to get the property to what it can be. They just want to exit because they're feeling some pain now. Is that what you're seeing?
Absolutely, exactly that. And so we're seeing all kinds of. I've got this lady that's calling us, and she, believe it or not, talking about an investor that didn't view any properties that she bought. But she, back in the good old days of Mortgage Express, she bought a load of property without seeing any of them.
Yeah.
Now they're all, circa 20% plus negative equity. And now she's absolutely screaming because even when interest rates were low, she was still making some cash flow. Now that all her, they've all gone on standard variable rates. They're absolutely
very painful indeed.
Yeah, very crippling her. So not only can't sell them because they're in negative equity, and she don't have the funds to crystallize the sale, but also it's not making any cash flow. So it's
how do you help someone like that? Do you have a plan for that? Or
I mean, she's just running them a single let. So what we're looking at is the portfolio in general to see, can some of these be restructured as something like a multi-let? Can we turn some of those apartments into service apartments to see if we can generate a little bit more cash flow out of them? In terms of the equity, we're going to probably have to pay longer term game, so it could be that we structure those over like a 10-year lease option. We'll wait and see how long's left on the expiration of the mortgages. We're trying to see, there are definitely ways that we can help.
But it is getting creative, isn't it? It's because a straightforward sale is not an option if you've refinanced several times and now you're in negative equity, and as well as funding that bit, you've got a tax bill to pay. Capital gains bill, and there's a lot of people who are in that situation. We've gone off topic a little bit, but that was always going to be the case. But I love the fact that your app is not just about here's a property for sale. It's about structuring a deal that might be right for the right investor.
Yeah. So I mean, to be fair, we come across all different weird and wonderful scenarios, and I make no regrets about this remark that I get to see all the best deals first. And so I've come across, so someone's bought us a deal. So as tail end of last year, this investor herself, she bought me 2. She said to me, "Arsh, I've got 2 hotels in Blackpool." I thought, oh, okay. And she goes, "I want to sell them. I want to go and start retiring in Spain. I think Benidorm's her place." And I said, okay. So we started looking at, and we started to understand the angle, and we'll structure those on 7-year lease options. So now I've got 2 bloody hotels in Blackpool. If you ever want to go to Blackpool for a weekend away,
okay. So and are you running them as hotels, or what are you doing with them?
Serviced apartments. Okay. Because they're structured, even though in almost like an Airbnb, a guest house, they're still as individual serviced apartments. And so we've had our first summer. We've had our first summer in Blackpool, which was interesting.
Was it? So, how was the summer? Because you hear that a lot.
Absolutely heaving.
Wow, that's great.
But it comes with its issues, because people that go to Blackpool are different caliber.
Well, it can be sort of stag and hen do a little bit, can't it?
It's a different breed. It's a different breed of human being.
Okay, so you've got some challenges. Although I don't think Blackpool's not on its own in terms of that. There's lots of places, around the UK that might attract a certain sort of clientele who maybe it's they're not going to look after your property.
No. It's, I mean, to be fair, it's great. It's just because prior to that, our service accommodation was all predominantly around Cornwall, and so Cornwall. Then we've got down. Now there's the best part of 100 units that we run on service apartments. So we've got Cornwall, we've got Liverpool, we've got Nottingham, we've got Manchester, we've got Wolverhampton, and Blackpool. So again, so that's busy in itself. But these are all deals that have come to me via the app. So
yeah. Okay.
As Del Winton used to say, you've got to be in it to win it.
Yeah, you're definitely in it. So, well, look, it's been amazing sort of chatting to you about the world of sourcing. You know, if there's anything that, you know, our team think I've missed on this, and I doubt it because we've talked about a lot of stuff, then, you know, if it's okay to come back to you. I did want to ask, so for anyone who is, you know, maybe in a similar situation to me, who's looking at properties, they're not going to be right for them. What's the next step? So, you know, how do they start working with you?
So first things first, you can either go to, first of all, download the Property Investor app. So download the app. You can either go to our website, which is propertyinvestораpp.co.uk, or if you've got a smartphone, go to the App Store, type in Property Investor, and download it from there. It'd be great if you can leave us a review, as always. But then when you do download the app, if you've got a property, well, you can use it just as a viewing tool if you're looking to buy, or if you've got a property that you want to sell. There's a little button on there that says sell your property, and you can upload all the details on there. Now, when you do upload them, it doesn't instantly go live. It goes into almost like a mini backspace where my team then just go through and appraises to make sure that the deal will work.
Arsh decides if he's going to buy it.
Yeah. So if Arsh, and then off the back of that, then and then we push it live.
Yeah. Okay. Brilliant. So the one-stop shop is downloading the app in this instance.
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
Okay, but you've got loads of other stuff that people can follow you in and get engaged with you in. So can we, like, maybe the podcast is a good in as well?
Yeah, I release a podcast every Tuesday called Tuesday at 6 a.m. So when you should be going to the gym, it's Tuesday at 6 a.m. And should mention that Ant's got a few gyms.
I do, but it's okay to listen to the podcast on the way to the gym. So
yeah, absolutely. So got a podcast. It's called The Property Rebel. Released every Tuesday at 6 a.m. And then I've got an active YouTube channel which I release videos. I think it's every Thursday at 4 p.m.
Okay, brilliant. So two great places to stop by and start to connect with you. So, Arsh, it's been an absolute pleasure as always. You know, normally our catching up is done sort of over a few drinks in the dance floor. So hopefully we're getting towards that season now anyway. So
brilliant. Thank you very much, Chance. Really enjoyed it.
Okay. Take care. See you soon.